Hello, everyone. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. This is the first Lunchalytics of 2017. I'm Dana. I'm an analyst at Dark Horse. I'm filling in for Dan today and his normal hosting duties. We've got a full agenda today, so I'm just going to jump right on into it. So this month, we have a very generous sponsor. So IBM is responsible for bringing you all this delicious pizza today. And so first up, I'd like to invite Scott.
Thank you. So thank you, everyone, for having us here today. We're really honored to get to be a part of your inaugural session. I hate to start out a conversation with an apology, but we do have to apologize. One of our technical folks who is going to actually take you through some IBM solutions and one of our newest products called the Data Science Experience, which is an open source analytics project that we're involved with and was recently launched in 2016. He made it over the mountains, but he couldn't land, and he's on his way back to Vancouver. So do have to apologize. I'm going to keep it pretty brief, and I just want to talk to you about a couple of things. One, primarily around IBM's investments in the open source community, and why we're so excited about a few of the projects that are happening out there, and how we view IBM as a really good partner for the open source community, some of the value that we can bring. So I just have a few slides that we're going to share with you, and I'll try not to make it too salesy, but if you are interested in hearing a little bit more about some of this technology, we'll be here today. And actually, our technical guru who's going to come in and demo is going to be here tomorrow. And we actually do have a couple of sessions that have been organized. One for breakfast tomorrow morning, and another in the afternoon with some drinks to follow. And there will be a live demo, hands-on keyboard of that technology. So first off, just want to talk a little bit of bragging, very brief, about IBM's commitment to the open source community. As you can see, we are currently, and this isn't up to date as of yesterday, but it's pretty current. We are one of the largest contributors to the Apache Open Source Foundation, and a lot of our committers are primarily focused on Spark as an in-memory analysis platform. So I'm sure a lot of the people in this room are quite familiar with Spark, maybe experimenting with it a little bit today, but that is where a lot of our interest lies. We are also involved in the Open Database, or rather the Open Data Platform initiative. And this is really where we view IBM as a key partner for the open source community. And it's really about trying to enable a set of standards across certain open source technology. And primarily what we're talking about here is Hadoop. So we're one of only two major Hadoop vendors that has signed on to the ODPI, the other one being Hortonworks. And as you can see, a lot of different organizations have signed on to this. And this is just really about making Hadoop a more enterprise acceptable solution for a lot of organizations out there. So just ensuring that a lot of the tools and applications that people might be deploying to Hadoop are going to be something that you can count on for long term. And so this is really one key area where we view as IBM bringing a lot of differentiation and a lot of value to open source. So the other key area is open source technology as a managed platform. So as I'm sure you're all aware, it can be difficult to deploy this technology in an enterprise ready fashion, to stand up these types of environments and to make sure that you have the ongoing capacity that you can need to run all your different applications and business processes. So to that end, we do have some solutions in the open source managed platform area. A lot of this technology is actually hosted here in Canada. So we do have a couple of data centers in Toronto and Montreal where a lot of this is hosted. We are aware there are a lot of data residency issues with a lot of our clients. And so we are able to offer these type of technologies ready to go, spin up with a very quick time to value here in Canada. So Spark. want to talk a little bit about Spark. Can I just get a quick show of hands? Who's heard of Spark, familiar with Spark? Okay, so about half the room here. That's good. That's good to see. So IBM is really excited about Spark. We view this technology as finally delivering on all the promises of Hadoop that you may have heard over the last few years. And when Hadoop first came out, people got really excited about it, and they thought, this is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and we're going to replace relational databases, and it's going to be a whole new revolution in analytics. It didn't quite turn out that way. A lot of Hadoop distributions and projects wound up going sideways because the analytics piece wasn't quite there. It did what it was supposed to do. People were able to offload from their data center, and they were able to get a lot of the technology outside of a more expensive data warehouse or appliance type form factor, but it wasn't really able to deliver on the analytics piece yet. And this is where IBM sees Spark being able to deliver on that promise of Hadoop. In-memory, massively scalable analytics capabilities. And so as you can see, the number one contributor is Databricks, who is a partner of ours. And you know what? They're always going to probably be the number one contributor. These are the folks that came up with Spark, and so they're quite active in their contributions. But as you can see, the next 5 contributors don't quite add up to IBM's contributions for Spark. And our contributions are squarely aimed at Spark SQL, machine learning libraries, and a lot of bug fixes and things that are really intended to help make this a little bit more enterprise ready and secure going forward. This is what we were hoping to talk to you a little bit more today about. We were going to try to do a demo for you. As I said, our tech guy couldn't make it, but what we're looking at here is just a couple of quick screen grabs of the data science experience. It's a collaborative framework leveraging a lot of things like Jupyter and Zeppelin notebooks for data science teams to collaborate on some of their projects. You can see on the left pane here some of the different coding and things that are happening, and then an output on the right-hand side. So utilizing things like R, Python, Shiny applications are all utilized within here. And it is a cloud-based solution that does contain some links into our applications like Watson and things of that nature. In regards to the other 2 sessions, if you want a more in-depth look at the data science experience, some actual live demos, we do have the breakfast, and we have an afternoon session. So if you wanted to take a quick second to kind of write down those URLs, we'll make them available by email to everyone that attended as well. We'll send that out. But one in the morning, free breakfast, and then one in the afternoon, and some cocktails post. So that's really all I wanted to say today. Thank you for your time, and we'll pass it on to the rest of the group. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Anyone have any questions or comments for Scott? All right, we've got a quiet group today. All right, so just before I bring up my next speaker to give a quick pitch here, I just wanted to get a feel for who we have in the room today. So of the people in the room, who here are practitioners of analytics or data science? All right, who's more in the business side, maybe consuming analytics? Awesome. And any students in the room? Awesome. And anyone who doesn't fall into one of those categories? Cool. Awesome. Well, great to have a good mix of people here today. So our next speaker is going to be more of a pitch more than anything else. So I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, Manoj. Sorry, I'm bouncing multiple laptops today.
Okay. But you need this online too.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Dana, for introducing me. So I just want to start off with a small analogy. Now imagine John is a person who is planning to bake a cake. He goes online, researches about the ingredients and the quantities required, and he sets about this grueling process. After about 30 minutes, he realizes that he's not set up for this task. So imagine the same situation in terms of business school. The ingredients and the quantity are the theoretical analytical skills that the students gather in the school. And the cake is nothing but the School of Business. And John is a student in the School of Business. So what I'm getting here is, unless John has a platform to showcase his analytical skills and sort of get to know how the real life business environment is, he's never going to learn and grow. And that's where we come in. My name is Manoj, and I'm here representing the Sponsorship and Outreach Committee of the School of Business. And the platform that I'm talking about is analytics case competition. And what we would want from you is financial support to make this dream a reality. So let me give you a quick overview of the School of Business. So the School of Business ranks as one of the top MBA programs in the world, and it was ranked in the top 100 in the late 2015 FT rankings. And we also boast a population of close to 470 students, out of which around 6% come from a data science background, that is IT and computer science. We also host around 1,700 undergrad students who use data analytics as part and parcel of their everyday lives. So the sponsorship. So what is an analytics case competition? So for those of you who don't know, a case competition, analytics case competition it's a team of 4 people who are going to pit against each other to compete on a case, a business analytics case, in a time-constrained environment. At the end of the day is when the teams present, the judges get to decide which is the most feasible and sustainable solution, and they are awarded the prize according to that. So we have different sponsorship packages that we customize based on what we want. But at the end of the day, the companies want to know what they can get from it, and you want to know what we can get. So some of the benefits that the companies can get, we believe, is you get to interact with some of the top talents of MBA in the country. You also get to have exclusive privilege towards the resume and LinkedIn profiles of all the participants in the competition. You also get to see firsthand some of the students, how they present. Like when you judge them, you sort of get to assess their quality when they apply for internships or when they go on to work for companies like IBM and other big data companies. Another thing is it gives you a brand promotion. So whenever students represent any external case competitions, when students go out, your brand is going to go out and say that this company is sponsoring the School of Business. And it's a great platform for brand recognition. For the students, the benefits a lot more. Like you get to network with the data scientists, you get to network with the corporations which are big in data. And also they get to learn how the real business world looks like, as to what drives it and what skills they have and what more they have to learn. So these are the contact details. I would request you guys, I know that's a big name, but I'll request you guys to take the numbers, and I would be available for any questions that you have. If you have any quick questions, I can answer them now, and I'm also available after the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Manoj. Now you know why I only introduced him by his first name, because, yeah, no. All right, so if you have any questions, we will also tweet out the information for how to contact Manoj and his team after the event. Thank you very much. Right. So bring up our next speaker. So I'd like to introduce Kusha. He's from the Analytics Center of Excellence with the City of Edmonton. And just while he's getting set up, is anyone here at a company that is currently hiring anyone to work in analytics or data science? Nobody? Oh, Eugene? Oh, Scott? Do you want to mention anything about it or any more details?
I can tweet a link to the posting. They're actually hiring for positions.
Excellent. So we'll tweet those out after the event. Eugene?
We're looking to hire some someone to do some analytical work on a contract basis. So if anyone's interested.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, just a quick comment. So we already have Dark Horse on board as one of our sponsors. So it'll be even nice to have a lot more sponsors because it's the first time we're hosting this competition as part of the School of Business. So it'll give us a lot more scope, if we have more companies. Thank you.
All right, all ready to go?
Yes.
All right, well, please welcome Kusha.
I'm a data scientist at the Analytics Center of Excellence in Open City and Innovation branch. The city of Edmonton is a corporation of about 11,000 employees with a budget of about over $5 billion. There are many different operations at the city happening. The whole purpose and mission of our branch is to improve efficiency and productivity in different businesses across the corporation. That can be operations directly and services directly for citizens, or internal procedures, processes that the corporation is performing. We have different functions and sections or programs under Open City and Innovation. I will be talking about Analytics Center of Excellence, which I am part of a lot more, and Open Data, but other programs, the innovation program is taking care of process improvement, lean processes, and so forth. Open Lab was intended to help entrepreneurs to start a company, develop applications related to municipal services. And Open Science is our collaboration with post-secondary school, post-secondary education, or students, professors, researchers to do projects. So we have accomplished a lot since the Open City policy was approved about 2 years ago by the council. Under different initiatives that we have, we are very, very proud to be the #1 city in Canada, second year in a row in terms of open data. And before I continue, I'd like to introduce Shomo. Shomo is the program manager of Smart Cities in our branch. He takes care of a bunch of different programs, particularly anything related to open data. So I invite you, if you would like to talk about open data, if you have ideas, if you have questions, please speak to Shomo after this, or we are working on this. This is the different streams that we are working on in our branch. It's under revision. The new one will come out hopefully in a couple of weeks. I will be focusing on open data analytics, this stream. I'm part of Analytics Center of Excellence. Our mission is improving decision-making, data-driven decision-making across the city in different businesses. Within our team, we adopted this definition of analytics from Gartner. We divide this to two groups. The descriptive diagnostic analytics are things that traditionally have been done in corporations, big corporations, financial institutes, for the past 20 years. How well are we doing? Are we on target? Are we on budget? And usually corporations do this by dashboarding, Excel, Tableau, other stuff. If they do a good job of dashboarding, perhaps they can answer more sophisticated questions. Why we are not on target? They can drill down to see what project is burning the money, why we are not on time. But if you go beyond this and you want to know how many people do I need next year, those become predictive, prescriptive analytics. And my work is focusing on these two categories. And you can think of using machine learning in most cases as a distinction of these two streams of projects. We have three pillars in Analytics Center of Excellence: data science team, which takes care of advanced analytics projects; business intelligence team, which takes care of analytics projects, dashboarding. We are very big on Tableau, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, and corporate data, which is taking care of internal data warehouse that we are building. And within the Analytics Center of Excellence, it's a section under Open City. We have different initiatives. We have, I think, accomplished a lot since our inception less than 2 years ago. And we are also trying to advance this culture of data-driven decision-making in Edmonton. We have a lot of talented employees in different sections, but some of the business units have been around for 20, 30 years, and some of the processes that they follow might not be very up to date. We think there is a lot of room for using analytics to improve those processes. We also have, for example, a special interest group. We invite analysts to present their project internally at the city. About 60 people in the corporation attend this event every 2 months, and it's got a lot of attention. And the idea is promoting the work that analysts do across the city. We'll talk about a few of our projects on there. Before I show you the projects in advanced analytics, maybe I should talk about our open data catalog. How many people have looked at the open data catalog in Edmonton? Okay, maybe I shouldn't show it. So the catalog sits on Socrata. Socrata is a framework that hosts data sets. So the address is data.edmonton.ca. You can go here and search for data sets that you're interested in. So far, we have over 1,000 tables, or some people call it data sets, here. And I invite you to take a look at this. There is a good chance that something that you're interested in, the data for that is here. Bike lanes, assessment data, which you're looking at here. This is assessment value of every property at the city of Edmonton in 2016. We also host other forms of data sets. It's not only tabular data. For example, this one is shape data. This is the roofline data. And it's the roofline of every property at the city of Edmonton. I wanted to show you examples, but in the interest of time, I won't go through a lot of examples. But open data is available to businesses, entrepreneurs to build their product. And it is yours. Your product is yours. You don't owe anything to the city. The only thing is the contribution. There is no copyright. There is nothing there. The product is yours. So Justin, who is a local programmer here, he does consulting work in other places, but he took the open data, the bus schedule data, and the real-time location of buses in Edmonton, which is available through open data, and he built an application around it. We have almost real-time data for buses across the city. And this, in my view, it has many applications. If you're a marketing company with limited budget, you want to look at, for example, the advertising on buses, which bus routes you want to target. Or if you're interested in transportation, you can run clustering on this and find pockets of city that don't get a lot of buses during some time periods in the day. There are several other applications. I won't go through them. No, sorry. So particularly, using advanced analytics and machine learning to do projects. One project that you may have heard about it is crime analytics. We are interested to know where the crime happens, when it happens, and why it happens. For example, this study was done at the city of Edmonton. We put a grid on the city, 11,000 blocks, and we aggregate data in each block. And this was a successful project. It is operational at the city of Edmonton. Recently, they did a social study on this. Every dollar that is spent on this program, it returns $1.6. We also worked on anomaly detection on services. At 311, when we get calls, we have this anomaly detection running so that before a problem becomes an issue across the city, for example, we are getting a lot of calls about drainage. Before it becomes a flooding issue, we can detect that based on historical data. Before we send a notice on that, we can automatically detect this and bring attention to this. Another simple project is we worked with PMO folks. This is more of an analytics project, not advanced analytics project. And I wanted to talk about Tableau here. So using Tableau and some intermediate to advanced hackery stuff, we have developed something that would take a few days for folks in portfolio management office. It saves a lot of time for them. And the interesting thing is we run this on Tableau server. So every manager at the city now, every one of these 11,000 employees, they can access Tableau server. They just open a browser, they click on the dashboard that they are interested in. For example, this one, if they have access to it, and they can drill in. They can see what project is not going well, what is red, what is green, and so forth. Another project we looked at is the process that we have for collecting needles, used needles across the city. In this case, we ran a kernel density estimation on this, on historical data, to identify the best places to install additional needle boxes. Currently, we have 14 needle boxes to dispose needles. And if we wanted to add more needle boxes, of course, we want to put those needle boxes in places that we have higher density of needles reported for collection. And we have done a lot of other things on this. Another thing that corporations usually hate is procurement. It's been around in corporations for a long time. It's difficult, it's time consuming, and there is a lot of room for analytics to improve the procurement process. In this particular project, there are a bunch of items that are restricted items. You are not supposed to submit that item with that information. It becomes a classification problem for us. And the idea of this project is having the data set, for example, for the past 2 years or 1 year, which is labeled by some analysts in procurement, being this is restricted, this is restricted, this is not restricted, not restricted, not restricted. Can we build a model that automatically predicts restricted items? And this has been very successful. It is implemented. It's going to be operationalized on February 1st. And I should say, I think it is clear that this is a very time-consuming process. For every item, every purchase at the city, there is a record. And if procurement folks wanted to do this manually, it's not done right now. If they wanted to go through every individual entry, it would take months.
Sure. What's your difference between accuracy and precision?
So accuracy is your performance, how well you're doing. Our goal here is to identify restricted items. And these are rare items. So generally, when you're doing classification, in problems that are, we call them unbalanced classification, meaning that the number of items that I'm looking for is very low in the whole data set. Only 4%, 5% of the items are restricted. 95% of the items are not restricted. They have followed the process properly. For this kind of work, we have to look at precision and recall on the class that we are targeting. So accuracy is, in fact, not a good measure, because if I said every item is not restricted, again, I would get an accuracy of about 95%, because 95% of Another project which recently was in the news, we'll talk about this one, is turf maintenance. How good I'm doing with time? Okay. So I'll make it quick. Turf maintenance optimization. We started this project when people in parks came to us. They said, we have a process, $5 million spent on cutting grass every year. This year is actually $8 million. And we want to improve this process. The city has a mandate to cut the grass. And we have a bunch of depots, locations across the city. Think of like triangles. Here are the depots. The squares are the service locations, and the size of the square shows is proportional to the size of that turf. And they wanted to see how this process could be improved. Currently, each quadrant, not exactly like this, but each quadrant is managed independently. So if I send a crew here, they're not going to cross that boundary, because that boundary is managed by SHOMO, not KUSHA. We think it's a bad idea and could be improved, for example, by a network distance, looking at actually the driving distance and optimize on that. There are several other work that we have done here, and we can objectively measure the performance improvement that we are making. So I have to be very quick, but we look at the process as is. We calculate the total, for example, driving distance, and we look at the total driving distance under our proposal. And we can compare that. Of course, in some places, we are driving more. The gray one is our recommendation. The blue one is what's happening right now. But overall, the driving distance will drop. We've made a couple other recommendations on this, including routing optimization. After the assignments, what is the best route? If you have a fixed shift of 8 hours, 10 hours, what service locations should you visit? And this evolved to a few other projects, for example, road maintenance, weed management, and so forth. I'd like to end with talking about Canadian Open Data Summit. This is a national conference to celebrate open data. This year, Edmonton has won the hosting for this conference. It's going to be between June 12th to June 14th. It's an honor for the city of Edmonton to host this conference. There will be world speakers, world quality speakers attending this conference, different organizations, different sectors. If you want to learn more about the conference, again, speak to SHOMO, and the tickets will be available from February 1st. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions?
It's not a question, but I just wanted to highlight the connection between Anomaly Detection and IBM. In 2011, the city of Edmonton was one of the IBM smartest cities. And so the smartest cities challenge was an in-kind investment. IBM chose Edmonton specifically to work with traffic safety. And one of the recommendations that came out of that report was the establishment of an Anomaly Center for Excellence. And so a few years later,
Right on, IBM.
I'm interested in the engagement model. The examples that you use are
your data science team working within the city of Edmonton operations teams, do the turf guys come to you and say, hey, we really want to optimize our driving distances, or do you come out and say, we can see you driving around, where does it come from and how?
This is a very good question. So right now, our team is a consulting team. So we provide services, and we are heavily relying on analysts that who come to us with their problems. But the number of projects that we have is a lot more than what we can afford to do, and the resources that we have. So we have this great opportunity to choose from about 60, 70, 100 projects that are available out there, advanced analytics, and pick the ones that impact the organization the most. And also, we are looking at some different factors. For example, is this project applicable to other sections? Turf is a good example. We knew ahead of time, if we do a good job, perhaps we can use it in other sections. But we rely on analysts, and that's why we try to hold special interest group conversations, to go to different business units and talk about the projects that we have done, to trigger, in their mind, trigger possibilities and start the conversation there.
You've got enough people begging for help. It's one trigger too.
Yeah. Now it's, and that's a good time to introduce Roman. Roman is our third data scientist at the city of Edmonton. He actually works with citizen services, so a lot of projects that directly impact citizens. I was the first, of course. No, I'm kidding.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Kusha. All right, so while we get set up for our third and final speaker, I wanted to make a couple quick updates. So as I warned you, today's schedule has been very, very full. We've been hearing a lot about different events and resources and job postings and the like. And you're probably wondering, how will we ever know all those details and remember everything that you told us? I'm getting outsmarted by an HDMI cable right now. Someone want to, whoever unplugged this one, come up. All right, so we set up a new website, so lunchalytics.com. So this will be your one source for finding information about upcoming events. So upcoming speakers, we'll have our links to all of our live streams as well as videos from past events. Thank you. I swear I know what I'm doing up here. So we will still be doing all of our RSVPs via, nope. No, it's this one, but this is the wrong one. Okay. Sorry, everybody. So we will still be doing all of our RSVPs through Meet. We can have a good idea on numbers and have the right amount of food for everyone. But rather than having to click through the calendar, you'll just have a nice succinct list of everything that's coming. And as you'll see, our next event in February is going to be hockey themed. So we've got some really exciting speakers lined up for that. For those of you on social media, we've also laid claim to at Lunchalytics on Twitter and facebook.com/Lunchalytics. So this is where we'll be posting the job postings that IBM mentioned, as well as Eugene, links to Manoj's event and information on how to sponsor and all kinds of exciting things like that. All right, so we're bringing up our very last speaker. But before that, I want to do a quick update from Data for Good. So Data for Good is inspired by datakind.org. They're aspiring to do positive social action through data in the service of humanity. So we're hoping to bring, Data for Good is hoping to bring together local data scientists and to inspire new ways of using their skills to meet the needs of local nonprofits and charities. The current focus is on datathons and consulting with organizations to help them with their data. So the next meetup is next week on Thursday, February the 2nd at 7 o'clock at the Bonnie Doon Library. And if you want more information, you can send them an email at dataforgoodYEG@gmail.com. Cool. All right, so that was a lot of announcements. I'm going to pass it on over to Donnie to give his talk. All right, there you go.
Well, thanks for having me over. I always like going last, no pressure. It's hard to top the things that the city of Edmonton is doing, but Before I start off, I'd like to give an introduction. I'm Donnie Alex, and I'm from the Open Government Program at the Government of Alberta. Before I get into this, I really wanted to preface the fact that the government functions as separate organizations. We've got about 21 ministries or so. Now think about it as 21 separate organizations functioning differently, running their own analysis, having their own data sets. The Open Government Program is more or less a corporate entity, but here's the thing, we have no data. We are in charge of the open data or open government platform, but as I said, we have no data. So a lot of our role is actually around the operations of that portal, but also advocating to get the data out as open data. So the Open Government Program was established about 4 years ago, and it was based on these principles, open by design, basically saying, let's increase the accessibility of our government information, embed a culture of openness right from the start as to when data is being created, having that, driving a culture of innovation within the government so that we start becoming more of a data-centric organization, and improved governance. Well, I just hope these principles really worked. Principles are good on paper, but when you actually come to the reality of things, it's a whole lot different. This is a philosophy that we approach, but the reality is essentially like this picture. This is literally how hard it is to get information in the government, right? It's hard to identify, to discover, and even if you do discover where it is, you have to go through all those data sharing policies. You have to overcome the barriers of culture. Keep in mind that we speak about data analytics, but data analysis is not new to the government. It's been going on for years. It's been going on within different pockets, different skill sets, different talents, and trying to break those barriers to bring about proper standards. It's a big challenge. We have fiscal and financial pressures. Half of our data sets are logged in technologies that are probably legacy systems. How do you interact with different systems that don't necessarily talk to each other? So our job in the Open Government Program has finally been trying to get that fish out of that bowl into the next one, trying to change the culture. And by the nature of it, the Open Government Program is more transformative. So as I said, it's only about 4 years old. And so I'd like to speak to you about the journey that we've taken. We started off with the fact of let's put up an open data portal. Let's get the data out there. It worked to a great extent, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. As of today, we have about 2,273 data sets. So it's not just about getting the data out as a public data set, but it's also about getting it under an open government license. This involves a lot of education, a lot of hand-holding. As someone over here alluded to this, we needed an engagement plan. But what we soon began to realize is it's more like the chicken or egg thing. You go and ask people to liberate their data. They basically put back the question, why do you need our data? Why do you need it to be open? You have to showcase the value of that data before you can get people to change their behavior. So that brought us to our second step, where we basically started saying, okay, the concept of open data, let's get citizens involved. Let's showcase the potential that the community brainpower has. We are tied down by our own resources. We don't have the capability to hire many data scientists. But if we get that data out there, we could tap into the community's potential. And so I believe this was in 2015, an apps competition was run. And so I've just showcased the winning app, and I believe this is from Dark Horse Analytics. They won the competition at that point. But then that got us talking about, okay, Now that you put the data out there, let's look at let's now take a step back and look at how can we get our own data sets accessible within the government. So as I said, there are 21 ministries. Everyone's looking at their own sphere, their own silo. So we embarked on a journey, which I'm really excited about this because I'm leading many aspects of the enterprise data analytics track. So we started looking at how do we liberate the data first internally and then raise or at least become aware of the issues that prevent the data from being put out as open data. So we started off by first going for the lowest hanging fruits. Let's get some pretty maps out there. Let's put some pretty charts. Everybody loves a shiny aspect. So we started off with the descriptive analytics phase. Kush has already spoken to you about the different stages of analytics, but we started focusing on the descriptive analytics so people can get an idea of what their data is currently telling them. That surprisingly was a huge step forward. So I'm just showcasing a few examples over here. Last June, a few of my teammates, we basically sat down and we took on the vital statistics. Until recently, the vital statistics were being reported as annual reports, and it was only for a specific year period. I said, let's look at an area for improvement. Why don't we just transform those PDFs, those static PDFs, those visuals, into a more dynamic and interactive one? And so we did this. We showed them the temporal analysis aspect of it, and that really resonated with the audience group. So that helped us push the conversation forward to basically say, even the most simplest of analytics, even the most simplest of visuals can tell a story. And I put this specific one out here because it speaks about the marriage rate by selected cities in Alberta. How does this really impact in Alberta? Well, if there is somebody out here who's trying to establish a business in, let's say in the wedding arena, this probably could inform them of where they set their business up. We noticed that Banff and Jasper are probably saturated markets. But what we noticed in this trend was Canmore was, over the last decade, Canmore has seen a high rise in marriages. It could probably make the difference between success and failure. The other thing that we saw over here was actually around the causes of deaths. So we look back to the past decade. You see this? I'd like to draw your attention to this orange line. That orange line depicts organic dementia. We've seen an increase in cases reported against organic dementia. Now, that brings up a lot more questions. Why is there an increase? We don't have the answers for that right now. But that gets us into the next stage of analytics. It gets us asking those questions so that we can drive forward to get more data. Is it because we've changed how we report things? Is it actually a true representation of the increases in organic dementia? Or what are the underlying causes? There's still a lot more that we can do with this. The last example that I'd like to post over here was actually, as I've alluded to, we don't really have a lot of data scientists. We don't really have a lot of capacity, the financial and fiscal constraints. So what we've started doing is we've started engaging with different areas, with the universities, for example. And we've been trying to tap into them to help use their skills to generate some basic insights. One of those was around consumer, and this is something that we did very recently. It's around consumer complaints. We had over 1 million consumer complaints come into the government over the last 5 years. We sent that data set over to the university and they looked at it and they basically gave us an idea of what is happening, the trend. How does this trend analysis work? I don't think you can see it over here, but we've got a set of events that we identified. How did we see consumers respond to the Fort McMurray fires? What you'll see is the Fort McMurray fires actually took place over here. But you saw a spike taking place after that, a few months after that, in terms of general inquiries where people wanted to know. What this helps us from a business sense is actually identify how do we better plan our resourcing? How do we better equip our resources going ahead in the event of another disaster. It also helps us break it down by areas. The one thing that we saw here is we saw lower call volumes occurring in Edmonton, more call volumes in Calgary and Red Deer. The question comes up, is it because of the success of our consumer education programs in Edmonton? It's left us with a lot of questions, but that's a good challenge to have because that helps us drive our agenda forward. So I'd like to conclude these things by actually putting a challenge out to all of you. Use our data sets, challenge our views, because it is with your analysis that we can drive the value potential of getting more data out to you. So with that, if there are no questions, I'm done.
You know, you mentioned it being a change of culture. I think that's kind of one of the things that and I remember that health is the highest publisher of data sets. And they already have that culture of publishing calculated data. On the other hand, I think transportation had one data set and agriculture had three.
Yeah.
And today I'm not sure it's much different.
So, as I mentioned, different organizations, different levels of maturity. Some organizations, like for example, health, and to some extent even human services, they have it embedded internally into their culture. But there are other areas where it's just not the way of doing business. And it's about trying to understand why, what concerns do they have. Through my conversations with a lot of people, we find out that it's usually around the quality of data. A lot of people are concerned about whether the data is of utmost quality, and so they're concerned if they put it out there, what happens?
Well, that's one of the arguments for doing it.
Yes. And so that's why we need to get past, we need to have those conversations. And I would say that over the last few years, the attitude has been changing. It's slow, but it's progressed nonetheless.
On that topic, I'm just curious about the governance of the policy. Is in the cabinet body, and is there any willingness to have a open a default? Because quite frankly, if that's the approach it's going to be, we're going to have this conversation in 10 minutes.
I like to say that it's well understood and it's well accepted on the upper echelons going down. Unfortunately, a top-down approach does not necessarily work completely in this because the Open Government Program was established with that realization.
Right.
But it is about challenge, or it is about perceived perceptions of our legislation, perhaps, that sometimes people choose not to share the data because they're not really sure of what.
Legal.
Yes, and so the one thing that I didn't really speak on was our enterprise data analytics strategy. So we are approaching this strategy on different pillars. So it's the people, process, and technology pillars. Governance is a huge component. Okay. Right? It's governance not only on a technology, not only on the people, but also on the process. We need to be able to say, okay, if there are concerns with certain data sets, how do we work with you to make sure we address those concerns, but still make the data available in some form or the other? Is there anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all so much for coming out today. This was great speakers, so thanks again to everyone who came and joined us today. Huge thank you again to IBM for being a very generous sponsor today. So watch our Twitter for updates on a few of those events that we talked about, and we will see you all on February 15th.